Awesome. Welcome and thank you for joining me for this April plan with me as we explore a triple Dutch door spread that is full of flower power. This spread will look great in your planner or bullet journal and is a fun opportunity for us to practice, explore, and create together. Let's gather those supplies and get started. To complete this project, you need a pencil, pen, fine point Sharpie, paint brushes, a tissue for dabbing excess water while you're painting, and speaking of water, you'll need a clean bowl of water, some watercolor paints, some double-sided tape, and a journal. It can be a bullet journal, an art journal, or simply a composition notebook. Whatever you use or have on hand will be great for this project. To find inspiration for this month, I looked through some of my practice paintings and found this bright, bold flower made using watercolors and line drawing. We're going to mimic everything about this picture for the pages we're making today, from the color to the splatters of paint, as well as the details of the flower petals. The first step is to set up our Dutch door by cutting the first and second pages to form a cross diagonal design. Measure 2 inches from each corner of the paper and make a small mark with a pencil. This will keep your Dutch doors uniform and symmetrical. Use a ruler to draw a line from the upper right to the lower left dot on the page. I'm using an OmniGrid ruler, which was designed for use with quilt making. These rulers come in many sizes, and this 6-inch by 12-inch ruler and is a nice size to use for marking journal pages. Cut the top page on the drawn line. We're going to keep the top portion and carefully tear away the bottom portion. You could cut this part too if you're nervous about tearing the paper. Remember, this is the part we're discarding, so it's okay if it does not tear out perfectly. Now that our first page is completed, we can repeat the process for the second page. You'll need to mark the second page at 2 inches from each corner. This time we're going to draw our line from the upper left to the lower right and tear away the top part of the page. I'll include links in the description below for the supplies we're using. Now all 3 of our pages are cut up and ready to set up. Let's see how this is going to look. First page on top, second page on bottom, and third full page. I think this is going to be fun. The next step is to draw our design. Our flower center is going to go here, and I'll draw it first with a pencil. Then we'll add 5 giant petals. The first one will extend across the page, and I'll try to keep it centered. There will be a partial petal going straight up, one at a 45-degree angle, and then one going down and a final petal at a 45-degree angle. I'm going to paper clip the pages together at the top to keep them from shifting around while we're painting. This flower is ready for some color. I'm using a basic, inexpensive set of watercolors that you can pick up from any hobby or craft store. Our first layer of color is a light wash just to get color on the page and also to make sure our paper can stand up to the water. The key is to go light on the amount of water and let each layer of color completely dry before adding the next. I'm going for a color palette that is similar to our inspiration picture, but this flower could be any color you like. I'm not always a huge fan of pink, but in this case, I wanted something vibrant and fun, and the pink really does the trick. For me, bullet journaling and planning helps keep my mind clear, and creating pages like this that project a positive message are good reminders as I get started every day. Once it's dry, you can continue to paint more layers of color to deepen and brighten the flower until you're happy with the results. I ended up with 2 layers of color for now, but we may go back in for a few more details later. When your flower is just the color you like, it's time to add just a touch of dimension with a light gray. This makes a bit of shadow around your flower petals. Now it's time to start placing some of our elements on the page. On the center right, we'll add the monthly calendar. I'm doing this now before adding any other details to my flower, so that the calendar will stand out and the flower will look like a shadow behind it. We'll be putting our important dates on one of the upper petals. Here's where a dotted grid style journal would make this job easier. With the lined pages, I'll have to use my ruler to draw the monthly grid. It isn't hard to do, but does take a bit more effort to make it just right. This monthly calendar grid is made up of 1/4-inch squares. I'm using my Pigna 05 pen to draw the lines and numbers. I prefer to use a basic ballpoint pen or Pigma pen on this paper because there's much less shadowing or bleeding through on the back side of the paper. On heavier paper, I prefer Sharpie pens, and I will use some of those for this project too. At this point, I'm not sure what I'm going to do, if anything, on the back side of these pages, so I'm going to go for it with the Sharpies and start by outlining the flower. I'll slide a scrap piece of paper behind the one I'm drawing on, so if there's a bleed through, it will not get on the page behind it. Then we'll check our inspiration picture to see how some of the additional details were drawn and if we want to add any additional paint details. Each petal has a border drawn with lots of line details, but before we do that, we need to have a go at some of these fun paint splatters. At first, I'm filling my brush and shaking it on the page. That works to some extent, but when I hold my brush and use my index finger to tap the brush handle, it worked much better. We still haven't named our month. Let's add that on the flower center. I'm not great at hand lettering, at least not yet, so I did some searching using the keyword spring font to find something I liked. Now to draw those letters into the flower center. I always use my pencil first so I can change my mind about size and placement as I go along. Let's check our inspiration picture again for the line details on those petals and draw those next. We still need to add a touch more color to the flower by deepening the color of the petals where they attach to the center of the flower. And now we'll add more detail to our flower center. The inspiration picture has a very dark center with small white circles added all over for texture. Since our flower center is lighter, we'll do the same technique using our black pen. While we're at it, we'll also add some line details to the petals. Okay, I think we're finished painting the cover of our Triple Dutch. Our next step is to get our journal details added. First, we'll add our important dates, then headers for our to-do list and our to-buy list. When I flip the page to see the second and third pages of our spread, they look a little bare. Before moving on with those pages, I decided that the word April was kind of lost over there on the flower center, so I drew it again in one of the open white spaces. For the second and third page of our spread, I decided to mimic the cover flower in more subtle colors so that it would like a shadow or impression of a flower left by our bright and bold cover flower. This will also make a better background for filling in our remaining bullet journal trackers. Now we're ready to add our trackers. We'll do that on the second page of our spread. Since I'm relatively new to bullet journaling, I've been adding trackers slowly. On this page, I'm going to track my creativity, my exercise, and my mood. In past month, I've only indicated if creativity was part of my day. This month, I'm going to get more specific and list in what way I was creative. I've been doing some crocheting, some sewing, and all sorts of painting and drawing. Even video making could be listed here. I'm going to do something similar with exercise. I primarily go to the gym for exercise, but sometimes, especially now that spring is here, I will go for a hike or take a walk around my neighborhood. And for mood, I haven't quite figured out what a 1 to 10 scale looks like for me, so I'm going to start by listing one word that describes my mood for the day. Maybe later I'll be able to look for trends and apply them to a scale of some sort. And on our third page, we'll add our gratitude journal. This is one of my favorite parts of journaling. Every day I list 3 things that I'm thankful for. Sometimes it's silly things like coffee or sleep late Saturdays, and other times it's bigger things. No matter what time of day I write these, my mindset is greatly improved simply because I'm always looking at the world from a gratitude perspective. There's no time for grumbling and whining when you're on a constant search for gratitude. And there we have it, a bright, bold cover, a second page for our trackers, and a third for our gratitude journal. One of the things that's bothering me is this big empty page on the left side. I think I'm going to add my inspiration picture there to complete the spread. This is easy to do with some double-sided tape. And one of the last things I'm going to do is add a very small dot of double-sided tape to the upper and lower corners to secure the first and second pages. When they're loose, they tend to flop around and the tape holds them in place and is easy to loosen and re-stick as we add to the trackers and journals throughout the month. After I finished recording, I decided the cover page was not quite finished. The different sections were hard to see and I wanted to add more black to the page. The inspiration picture really stands out because of the black background, and while I can't take the journal spread to quite that level, I can add more to the page and take it up a notch. I hope you enjoyed sharing this process with me. This is my first ever video and I'm excited to learn and improve with each new video I create. Please leave a comment below with suggestions for things I should consider doing differently and ideas for future videos. And if you want to see more, please click that subscribe button below and ring that bell if you'd like to be notified. Thanks so much for joining me. I look forward to seeing you next time where we will plan to create and create a plan.